My name is Heather Kerner, and I am founder of the Good Crust, a small batch dough company in central Maine featuring the grains of Maine's own grist mill. Our pizza dough is 100% whole grain, and we source all of our ingredients from the grist mill of Maine grains. I'm here today to demonstrate a recipe that comes from Healthy School Nutrition online, and we're going to talk about making a basic Stromboli. And the great thing about pizza is that you really can feature any of the season's freshest produce in a calzone or a Stromboli like we're going to show today. I have teenagers at my house, and if it's anything like what you know, they start to develop a palate for spicy southwestern flavors. So we're going to demonstrate a spicy chicken Stromboli first, and then we're also going to demonstrate one with some lightly pan-seared zucchini and some pepperoni for a variation on flavor. One of the things that makes the Good Crust so delicious, and we're so excited to talk about, is that in testing the Good Crust in various institutions throughout Maine, we get great response from eaters about the flavor and just that students love to eat it. In fact, 95% of a 300 student survey showed that the students preferred the Good Crust over their existing option. And also 92% of them said that they would eat it on a menu if it were offered every day. So if we sometimes have the assumption that we might not be able to get kids to eat whole grain, the great thing about this product is that the eaters don't even know they're eating whole grain. It's light and crispy, and it's just a great substitution for a typical white flour product. So let's get started. Our recipe will have us thaw our frozen dough ball either overnight, or I like to teach that, of course, you can move it from freezer to your walk-in cooler and thaw several doughs at a time on your speed racks in your walk-in cooler. Just put them freezer to fridge the night before. But if you forget to do that, don't worry. The morning you come in, you can certainly lay your frozen dough balls out on a sheet tray and just leave them out at room temperature on your speed rack, and they'll be ready to go by lunch service. And once they're thawed, our process is going to be very simple. We're going to stretch these just like you're stretching a pizza dough. I prefer to stretch by hand, but you can certainly use your sheeters that might be in your kitchens, and those will save time and effort for you. I'm just patting them briefly, like many of you do, in a bowl of whole wheat flour. And one of the things that makes freshly milled grains so advantageous when you have just high productivity going on in the school nutrition kitchen is that it's more relaxed and easily stretched. So you're not going to have to wait on this dough ball the way you might have to wait on a tight white dough ball. It wants to kind of stretch out with the warmth of room temperature and the warmth of your hand. And you see how quickly this is just stretching right out. These dough balls are 16 ounces, although at the Good Crust we make them in any custom size that various institutions may desire, from 22 ounces all the way down to 3 ounces. This one is 16, and it's a 1-to-1 equivalent for whole grain units. So if you have a goal of 2 ounces of whole grain per serving, you'll cut this Stromboli into 8 pieces. There, you see how quickly that stretched right out just by hand. I'm going to lightly oil my sheet tray with some olive oil. I know you might use a spray. We just have an easy dish here. And one of the beauties about these Strombolis is that once you stretch out your pizza dough, you'll be able to put at least 3 finished Strombolis on one sheet tray. And that will really increase your efficiency in the oven so that you're cooking many, many servings at one time as opposed to just one pizza. So that might be one advantage to choosing Stromboli to feature over pizza for a particular day of your menu. The spicy chicken calzone we're going to demonstrate today calls for pre-cooked strips of chicken. And we are going to toss them lightly with a tablespoon of hot wing sauce. just to lightly coat them with a little bit of flavor here. This is going to be a creamy, cheesy stromboli. There. And our recipe also calls for ranch dressing to add some flavor and creaminess to the inside of your stromboli. So what we're going to do first, and you can certainly adjust your quantities for your desires. This is a very high volume recipe, so we're just going to approximate it for you today, is you are going to apply approximately 3 tablespoons per serving of ranch sauce. And we're just going to put that on the middle third of our stromboli. I like to imagine that the length of your dough ball goes in thirds, and we're going to leave the outer 2 flaps for folding. With that, we're going to put our chicken in here. And the recipe would call for 3 ounces of chicken per serving. So you can do that math and figure that if you're going to cut this stromboli into 8 pieces, you might use 24 ounces of chicken. It's up to you. But we have plenty here today, so we'll fill it right up. Some people might use or prefer to use a lot of sauces on the inside of their stromboli. It's my personal preference not to put a lot of wet ingredients on the inside of a stromboli because, particularly for your needs, you're going to want to slice that and have a nice, beautiful, perhaps slice on a diagonal when you present this in your cafeterias. And I feel it's a little easier to present it with a side of dipping sauce as opposed to putting a lot of wet sauce inside your stromboli. Certainly in our home kitchens, we can take that any direction we'd like. And with this, the recipe calls for pepper jack cheese, but you can certainly use whatever cheese you have on hand. You could use the USDA mozzarella. Today we also have sharp cheddar, and we're going to be using that today. As a mom, stromboli is also a great way to sneak in a few vegetables that the kids might notice. You could not notice. You can certainly add, some flaked parsley. You could certainly add a few small pieces of kale and sneak in some greens that way. For your purposes today, we're just going to follow the recipe, which is cheese, chicken that's been tossed in red wing sauce, and a little ranch. Okay. So with that, we've topped our toppings with cheese, and now what we're going to do is lightly fold our pizza dough across the top in thirds, trying to keep this as much of a rectangle as possible and kind of maximizing the use of your sheet tray. Again, I've lightly oiled it with olive oil to prevent any sticking, and that olive oil you can see is making the top kind of glossy, which will be nice on the bake as well. You don't need to brush any water or anything to get these edges to close. This is a nicely, highly hydrated pizza dough that's going to pinch close just easily. And there you have it. You can feel free to brush the top with a little more olive oil. In fact, we might do that a little bit here today, just to give it a little more color. Sometimes I like to put some sesame seeds, either black or white sesame seeds. Poppy seeds would look pretty as well. This recipe calls for a little bit more cheese on the top. And there we have our spicy chicken stromboli. We're going to put it in the oven in just a few minutes, and we'll show you what that looks like when it comes out. We are going to bake this in a preheated oven at 325 for at least 12 to 15 minutes. At the same time, though, we're going to demonstrate how you can freestyle this. And we are going to make another stromboli here made with fresh seasonal vegetables. Right now it's July in Maine. We're all harvesting maybe the beginnings of some zucchini if we got a head start on the season. Many of us are harvesting our garlic scapes right now, and kale and spinach. And you can sneak any of those seasonal vegetables into a stromboli. Here we have green zucchini and yellow squash. The more you pre-roast or pre-cook your freshest vegetables a little bit, whether it comes for pizza or stromboli, that's a good strategy for removing some of the moisture so that the inside of your stromboli doesn't get too soggy. So here we've pre-cooked ours just a little bit, get some of that moisture off. And then we have some nice quality pepperoni that we're gonna sneak in here. The kids will love this. There. Just a little goes a long way with pepperoni. It's so flavorful. And I like to think when you're making a stromboli of the cheese being like the glue. And so to put a little bit more on the top is a smart strategy. It'll help keep your dough and your crust kind of sealed right over the top. And we'll repeat this move one more time, where we're just going to fold the flaps over in thirds. You can see that. And we'll fold the top right over. This will be great with a nice marinara dipping sauce. And maybe we'll try slicing it on the diagonal. There, brush the top with just a little more olive oil, tiny little bit. And we'll top with the rest of our cheese. The great thing about using pizza as a vehicle for your freshest seasonal produce is that it's such a crowd-pleasing and already accepted food. It's a great way to introduce more nutrition to school programs. And we're especially proud to be making, for the first time, a commercially available pizza dough made with 100% Maine grains. So with that, we're going to put these stromboli in the oven at 325 for about 12 to 15 minutes. Well, here we are back again with our baked stromboli. Don't they look great? One thing I want to call your attention to now that these have come out of the oven is, while we only cooked 2 on a full-size sheet pan, you can see how much vacancy there is left on the sheet tray, and you could easily cook 5, at least 5 of these at a time to maximize your oven space when you're baking. So let's cut into these, shall we? I've loosened our spicy chicken calzone from the pan, and it's very easy to lift in one full package here. And again, if you're used to having pizza flavors on your menu in a traditional pizza program, sometimes a different shape or a way to dip a bread can excite your eaters. So we're going to slice these on the diagonal and plate them for you. Again, we used a 16-ounce whole grain dough ball for this stromboli, and so if you're shooting for about 2 ounces of whole grain per eater, we're going to shoot to cut this in about 8 equal portions. So I'm going to start right here in the center. And again, we've let this stromboli sit in a warmer for about 20 minutes or so that we're not going to lose all of the toppings on the inside, and they're not going to ooze out. I think that's a good strategy for you, and I know it's probably built into your schedules anyway, to have to wait a little bit after it comes out of the oven. So I'm going to cut this stromboli into equal fourths, and then in half from there. And there we have a nice spicy, cheesy chicken stromboli that we could plate with a few fresh herbs sprinkled on top. We could certainly serve that with a side of salsa for dipping if you're trying to feature some fresh seasonal tomatoes or cilantro from the school garden. Wouldn't that be beautiful? And for all of our students that are looking for, takeout with Tex-Mex flavors, this will please them. Spicy chicken. Next, we'll slice our seasonal stromboli. where we kind of freestyled it with a little bit of seasonal zucchini and yellow squash and a little bit of pepperoni inside. This one, I think, will be great if we played it with a little bit of marinara. Again, we'll cut it in 4 equal portions first, and then have each one to ensure that you are achieving your 2 ounces of whole grain per serving. There. And there's our seasonal stromboli with a little marinara sauce. The great thing about using the Good Crust for pizza dough replacement on your menus is that this is a whole grain product sourced from 100% Maine grains. It's an easy sell to student eaters because it's a crowd-pleasing food and they won't notice the whole grain. Bon appetit.